Here's another episode that the viewers have demanded. I've seen on social media from the very beginning of this show, people saying, I want to see screaming RPM. And you know what? We're gonna do it with a 327 small block Chevy. Why? Well, because you take guys of a certain age and you say the word 327 Chevy, it's like a Pavlovian response. They go, oh yeah, RPM motor, those things like to rev. Well, we're gonna explore that with two different engine combinations in one episode. It's gonna be amazing. First, let me show you this engine right here, which does make peak power around 6,000, but we do run it all the way up to 7,000. You saw this in a prior episode. What it is basically a 327 with a 30 thousandths overbore. So it is 331 cubic inches. It's got 11¼ to 1 compression. The cylinder head is Airflow Research's new unit that is like their lowest buck line. It's an as-cast 195. It's about $1,000 a pair. The intake manifold is the good old Edelbrock Performer RPM air gap, and up top we've got a Brawler 750 carburetor. The heart of the thing is the camshaft, which is really gonna dictate the RPM characteristics of the engine. And this one is a Comp Cam's Thumper hydraulic roller. The specs on it are 227 degrees at 50 on the intake and 241 on the exhaust. Here are the power numbers that we made as a baseline. It has 432 pound-feet of torque, and up top, 447.8 horsepower. We ran the thing out to 7,000 RPM, but in my opinion, the valve train is starting to give up at 62. We're gonna go boom! Giant solid roller, massive AFR competition heads, Wilson ported intake manifold, and the king. Which carburetor will we use?
The 1000.
We'll have the thou.
Oh, goodness.
Aha, the good stuff. This is what we're gonna run to try and get our 331 all the way up to 8,000 RPM, hopefully making a peak power number right around 72 or 7,300 RPM. It starts off with a big single plane intake manifold to replace the dual plane that was on the engine. This thing you saw tested in an earlier episode of Engine Masters, and we compared it with an as-cast intake, and it made a ton of extra power. It's an Edelbrock part number 2925 Super Victor. You can get it off the shelf from Wilson. This is like their general off-the-shelf package port job. It has extensive gasket matching down in the end of the runner and a lot of work in the plenum. It is a trick unit. Unfortunately, it's $1,000, but you gotta pay if you wanna make power at RPM. Speaking of which, the cylinder heads that we ran earlier today were an AFR as-cast in their Enforcer line, and they're about $1,000. We're about to step up to the Airflow Research 210cc competition ported heads. These things at Summit Racing are about $2,250, so more than twice as much. But again, you gotta pay if you wanna play. Now, the carburetor, I'm kinda bummed. I had promised Dulcich that we would run the Holley 1000 CFM unit. Unfortunately, I grabbed the wrong box from home, so we don't have the thou here with us. Instead, I went to Westech's carburetor shelf and I got the Holley XP 950 double pumper. One of our favorite carburetors. It's gonna be just fine. Now, we get into the meat of it. The camshaft that really establishes the personality of an engine. I have to thank Schneider Racing Cams because they made this for me overnight when we decided to do this episode. It is a solid roller cam. The duration at 50 thousandths tap at lift is 260 and 268. The lift on it is 652 and 644, and it's on a 110-degree lobe separation angle. Actually a lot prettier than I expected. I thought this thing was gonna be what they call peaky, which means up and down, but no, it carries. We made 531 horsepower at 7,300 RPM, right on my target RPM for horsepower. And the torque, you'll see here it says 420.7 right at 5,000 or 5,100, but that's right when the dyno grabs the engine, and so it's not really real. And so it's actually 418 pound-feet of torque, which is up at where? 6,100 RPM?
Yeah. Wow.
Which makes sense.
That all makes sense.
Yeah, 6,100, the spread from peak torque to peak horsepower to 7,300, pretty normal. The overlay of the old combo versus this combo, watch this. That's pretty interesting, because what you're looking at here is that the red lines are our old combination with the small cam and small heads. Black lines, obviously, our new high RPM combo. But if you look at it right in here at the crossover at 5252, it's like the same shape.
I know, it's almost like a VTEC effect. It's like,
there you go,
right?
It is. It's almost like the VTEC kicks in and boom, it takes off. That's exactly what it is.
We might have a smidget to go. I mean, I'm close.
We'll give it to Smidgen. What do you think this is?
Get to smidgeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Smidgen that garbage. What we're talking about here is ignition timing. We have 38 degrees total in it right now. Our other combination liked 41. And so we're gonna go put a few degrees in it and find out if it'll tickle just a little bit more power into it. I think Mikey liked it.
This just makes me so happy. It makes me feel like I'm 23 again.
Really?
Listening to small block Chevys go to the moon. I love it.
Wow, that's like 60 years ago. Let's have a look. Ooh, it didn't like the 8,200 RPM.
It did, but no, that was the end of it right there. So we did find that 8,000
is the peak. That's what we're looking at and reacting to, is how you can see the curve just fall off right there. That's probably where it floated the valves. But we did go north with the power numbers. We've now got 537.8 horsepower, an improvement, and the torque also came up to 422.2.
I'd already called this a win, and we could probably go home now, but for the Martini run, this tapered combo spacer in a previous episode on this particular manifold did squeak out a little bit more horsepower. Will it happen with this combination? We're about to find out. We're gonna slip the spacer in between the carb and the manifold, and that should help our air-fuel ratio just a little bit, and the extra volume might be a benefit as well. We'll find out right now.
Okay, I'm not even gonna say it, just show me the data. You know what I wanna say, I'm not gonna say it. So yowza, here's our new power peaks. We made 546 horsepower, and this time it's at 7,800 RPM, and our torque is 425, and it hit that number both at 6,000 and 6,100. So again, just amazing, and it responded great. Dude, the viewers are virtually convinced that we're geniuses.
We're pushing it right now. I know.
I know.
We're working hard for onesies and twosies.
Well, pull it up. We got to find out if the data said 550 or not. I've got the Dulcich anxiety right now.
Whoa.
Done it. Whoa, way past 550. If you consider 552, way past 550. We made 552.9, which I'm calling 553 horsepower, all the way up there at 7,900 RPM. It's so much better than I anticipated.
Not if you're going 8,000 RPM.
It might not be enough.
8,000 RPM and 550 horsepower from 331 cubic inches on pump gas with an engine that you can assemble at home. This is a big over-deliver, which we do at least 2/3 of the time on Engine Masters.